whatever it is that that China needs, China is buying from whatever customer can provide it at the best price. And if that happens to be America, so be it. They will buy them from America. China doesn't have, I have never yet met a Chinese person at any level of society. I meet people in fairly high government positions. I've never yet met anyone who dislikes Americans. We don't here. We don't dislike you. We just say, what's going on? What's happening?
It's about primacy.
Yeah.
It's about primacy. I mean, we opened the conversation up with this, where this whole thing of the U.S. wants geopolitical control. I mean, there's a clip where Donald Trump was like, yeah, we should have low tariff. What did you say? We should have low interest rates because if it wasn't for America, the rest of the world would effectively fall apart.
Yeah.
That's the way they think. And so, they're being positioned, or they're running into a peer in a way that the United States have not had to deal with for God knows how long, not in the modern term. And so this is China effectively saying, look, we're a peer. You're going to regard us as such.
Well, I would disregard that statement. China is no longer a peer. There is an organization called the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI. ASPI hates China with a passion, but they have an annual technology tracker, which they put out. And I think there was 54 technologies in their last one, the 2024 technology tracker, and 47 of them China leads in right now. China is investing heavily in new technology, in new markets, in new diversifications, in its own domestic consumption. The 5-year plan, which came out a few days ago, not the 5-year plan itself, the draft of the 5-year plan, which will be approved by the National People's Congress in March of next year, was released just a few days ago. And that draft in it said all of these things. China is going to do this. It is going to invest heavily inside of itself. China currently has 1.2 million foreign enterprises working inside of China. Many of them are Americans. Hilton Hotel, Marriott Hotel, Sheraton Hotel, KFC, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. They're all operating here in China, and they're all doing very, very well in the Chinese market. Now, obviously, China doesn't want to say to any of those companies, we're going to seize you. We're going to take you because you're American. China has never, ever breached, as far as I'm aware, and people might be able to correct me on this and send me a link to not an American media that says China has breached, but I don't think China has ever breached World Trade Organization guidelines or United Nations charters. Never. As far as I'm aware, it's never happened. And maybe people could argue China invaded Vietnam in 1979. Okay, so yeah, all right, let's go back 45 years and say there's a point where China did something wrong. But most of us weren't even, I was, but most of the people watching this weren't alive then. So, I'm talking about in modern times, modern era, China does not breach UN charters. China does not breach UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It does not breach criminal law, international criminal law, or the International Court of Justice. It does not breach UN charters. It simply abides by everything that it's set to abide by. And this is why it won't sanction countries like Israel or Russia or Ukraine or any other country for that matter, because it bides its own time and it keeps its own counsel and it refuses to interfere with the internal affairs of other nations. That's China for you. We could, I mean, a lot of your viewers might be going, well, hang on, didn't they do this? Didn't they? No, they didn't do this. You're told that they did. You're misinformed that they did. China doesn't do this stuff. And sure. You can have articles that say they do, but proving...
Well, okay. You would get Scott Benson. All sorts of stuff, right?
It's what I said before. Bring me evidence. Don't bring me allegations. As someone asked me what my electricity bill is, I got a huge electricity bill the other day. Is one of the questions here. It was 350 RMB, which is $70 for the month. And that was with air conditioning. I've got the air conditioner running here. It was with air conditioner running 24/7, and I was home for the month, which is quite rare for me. Last month, my bill was 350. So I hope that answers the question that was asked a little while ago. But I think we're winding up. Or do you have another one?
Well, no, I was gonna. What is this woman? I've been. Okay, fair enough. No, I was gonna just give you your bio and everything else. You've been
Okay.
with me for an hour. I don't like to overkeep people's
I'm
time.
very happy chatting with you. As long as you haven't got another guest in the waiting room there, I'm quite
No,
happy
no,
to
no,
keep
no.
going.
There's not another guest. In fact, my guest just sent me a link effectively saying that they're carrying out maintenance and they've cut off the electricity for his property.
Well, if you want to keep going, and I'll be your second guest too, if you've got other stuff that you want to talk about.
Well, I
Otherwise,
wouldn't mind. Well, I wouldn't mind hitting Venezuela for a bit because Russia has just signed a strategic partnership with Venezuela. Obviously, this is kind of getting across: leave Venezuela alone. There's that, right? There's this clear indication that Russia is sending with that.
Did Russia actually do that? Because I saw a post on X that said China has said, if America invades Venezuela, China will support. And China has never said that at all. That's a lie.
No, Russia did sign a strategic partnership with Venezuela. Okay. Now, I do know that as a fact. Right. There was a signing ceremony and everything else where Putin, Maduro, yeah, so they did do that. I was going to ask about China on this. I don't really pay attention entirely too much to post the X because they say stuff like that. It's like Xi Jinping says he's going to attack America if blah, and it's like, okay, that doesn't even sound like Xi Jinping, right? Those things come out all the time, and it's always from several accounts. I don't know where they get that stuff from. I guess it's their way of
getting just clicks. Make it up as they go along. It gets clicks.
And but in Russia's case, they do look at Venezuela as a ally. In fact, Rabakov came out and was like, we shouldn't abandon our allies. You know, basically, we need to not kowtow to imperialist dictates. We need to actually stand by our allies. And he was talking in relation to Venezuela. I was going to ask, where does China fall on this? Because as you point out, there were posts on X that, again, I don't pay too much attention to, but they were indicating that there was this, that China also, which I could believe, would say, hey, you should keep your hands off Venezuela. That's a bad thing. I don't necessarily believe for a moment that they're going to send military support or anything like that in the way that Russia's been doing. But what is China's take on this?
Okay, before I answer that, I'll just answer Jeffrey Dennison's comment, social credit scores. They don't exist. There is no such thing. I promise all of your viewers this. If someone tells you they know someone who has a social credit score in China, I'm telling you, they are lying. They are
that's interesting. Okay, since you've opened this door, since this door has now been opened.
Okay.
Where does that come from? The social credit score thing.
Yeah. Would you like me to ask my wife what her social credit score is?
Yeah, please do.
She knows. She knows the story here. There is no such thing as a social credit score. However, there is a thing called a social credit score. And this is why Western media will often come back and say, yeah, here it is. Here's the Chinese government talking about it. China has a thing that relates to how businesses deal with their community, how they deal with their suppliers, how they deal with their customers. And they call that the business social credit score. So in other words, Chinese businesses must comply with a set of rules and guidelines in order to not have disgruntled customers, in order not to have disgruntled suppliers. There's a social credit score on companies. There is a financial credit score for all individuals who are over 18, have bank accounts, debt loans, and things like that, same as everywhere else. And that is the full extent of the social credit score. There is no such thing for a personal social credit score. Now, what we can do, and I've been involved in charity for many years in China, disabled people mostly, disabled sports particularly, because I ride my bike across China to raise money so disabled athletes can go to competitions and things like that. Now, I've been invited to apply to join this app, or as they call them in China, this APP. I've been invited to join this, and if I were to join it, I would get some points of credit. So then if I get caught speeding in my car, I don't even drive, but if I get caught speeding in my car, if I get caught jaywalking, they look at this and go, this guy's a good guy, let's give him a warning. But then they'll send me a message that says, hey, we know you're a good guy, but you did this wrong, so we're going to give you a warning this time, and you won't get a penalty. If I get a penalty and I get 3 points or 4 points, whatever it is on my license, and I have to pay the fine, I have to pay the fine. I can't get out of that. But I don't want these points on my license. So I can go to the government office and say, I'd like to volunteer. And they say, okay, well, we need people to control traffic on this junction on this day. We'll give you this training. We'll give you a flag and a yellow jacket. And you go and control that junction. And you do that for 10 days, 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day at peak hour. We will give you a reprieve on your 3 points on your driver's license. So you can actually get benefits, but you cannot be punished. There is no system in the world in China, anywhere in China, that punishes you for not doing something other than the punishments that you get for breaking ordinary laws. Drive too fast, don't put your seatbelt on the telephone on your car, whatever it is. If you get a punishment, that's a punishment, but you can work it off on your social credit score. So it is purely for the benefit. Now, there's another aspect to it, which is even more beneficial. If you are a migrant worker, so I know about this from a show that I did with Guangdong Television a while ago. I met a lady who was a migrant worker who came from Gansu to Zhongshan, totally unqualified, 17-year-old girl, 10 years of school education, got a job on the front gate of a factory making clothes as a security guard. After 12 years, she was married, she had a baby, she was working in the factory, she'd moved up through the ranks, been at the same factory all the time, and she wanted to get her child into the local school, so she started volunteering. She was outside the school with the stop slow sign, helping the kids cross the road, doing school dinners and lunches and things like that. And they gave her the credit that she needed to get her kid into the local school instead of sending her kid back to Gansu, where her registration is, and that's where the kid can go to school for free. Every kid goes to school for free, but only in the place where the parents are registered. So she's registered in Gansu, she's living in Zhongshan. Now her kid went to school. I met the kid, he's a university student now. She is now the general manager of the operations of that factory. And she came here as a 17-year-old with no qualifications. And she's a member of the National People's Congress, which is why I was able to meet her. Ordinary lady, very, very nice person, didn't speak a word of English. My Chinese is not good enough. We used a translator. I'm functional, but we used a translator. But that shows you what this can do. This is purely 100% beneficial to the people. So the guy who asked about the credit score, that's the credit score.
Now,
There's
the reason
no
that
negativity about it.
Now, the reason the guy asked that is because in the United States, what you would see is, let's say on Twitter or somewhere like that, it would be a homeless man, and he would be on the street, and it was like, this guy's credit score dropped too low. So he couldn't get food. It was like, this is what China's the Communist Party.
How many people in America? I believe the number. I believe the number is about 40% of people in America need food stamps to survive. Now, if that's true, that's a damning indictment of capitalism, because there is no one, not one person legally homeless in China. Now, there are people who live on the streets. Don't get me wrong. There are people who live on the streets, but it's a choice. They have a home. They have a registered home that they can go to. Now, some of these people have slipped through the cracks in the mental health care. Some of them are working migrants who are between jobs. Some of them are people who are just saying, I'm not going to pay 100 or 200 RMB a month. That's like $30. 200 RMB is $30 for accommodation when I can live under this bridge for free. This is how they save their money. So there may be people who are in between jobs. There may be people saving money. There may be people who have fallen through the cracks in the mental health, but they do get asked by the police, are you all right? Do you need anything? And if you do, they will give it to you. They will help you to get housed. There is no such thing as housing. They built some housing accommodation in Shanghai a couple of years ago during a very bitter winter, and they put people in it who were migrant workers choosing to live on the streets because it was bitterly cold. So there's no legal homeless here. No such thing as food stamps. If you don't have enough food, you go into any restaurant and you say, I don't have enough food, and they'll feed you. Every restaurant will do that. And then they'll call the government, and the government will say, why don't you have enough food? Who's looking after you? What's the problem? And you will get help. Every single person in China will get this. No one needs to go hungry in China. There are many, many restaurants that have what they call the number 2 dish. Go in and ask, can I have a number 2, please? They will give you the food and not even ask you. Number 2 dish is the euphemism for I can't afford to eat.
Are you serious?
Hungry. No one goes hungry. No one goes homeless. Now, yeah, of course, there are going to be people who, rural regions, perhaps there are people, we're not talking about numbers here. We're talking about people who defy the odds, the outliers. But in America, you have 100,000 people a day, or million, I don't know how many, lots of people. 12% of your country, 12% of America live in poverty. No one lives in poverty in China. No one. So we went from Venezuela to the social credit score to homelessness to food stamps. There is no such thing as food stamps here. You will get fed if you need it. Now, no one has. Can you imagine in China, if someone dies of starvation, that would be global news. Never heard of it. Every time someone gets stabbed in China, it's global news. Crime is rife in China. Someone got stabbed. Look over there. That's what they're doing. They say 50 people last month got murdered in America with guns, but look at China because 2 people got stabbed last year. That's what they're doing to you. They are deceiving you with misinformation about China. Yes, you can find some homeless people. Yes, you have some unemployed people. Yes, you do have some people who are hungry, but it's outliers. It's not the reality of China. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the norm. Yeah, here it's you should see the food banks. Our government has not been competent enough to stay open, and so it's been down for over a month.
Yes,
Trump has apparently pulled food from food banks that was supposed to go. SNAP benefits are about to end.
Yeah, SNAP's an interesting thing. We don't have such a concept. SNAP is a really interesting concept. Chinese people go, what? I said to my wife, this was several years ago, I said, America has this many, and I can't remember the number, this many homeless people. And she said, why don't they just go back home? She couldn't understand the concept of homelessness. And she's an intelligent lady. She's well-educated, well-traveled. She's been to Europe. She's been to the UK several times. She's been to Australia. She says, why don't they just go home? I said, they don't have a home. Where are their parents? Well, maybe their parents are dead or their parents don't want them. What do you mean their parents don't want them? If they haven't got a home, their parents will take them. This is just a concept that Chinese people cannot get their heads around. You've even created a new word, vehicular residents. People who live in their cars, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
20 years ago, no one in China had a car. Now everyone's got a car. They want to live in it. It's so good. But this is a really crazy, crazy phenomenon. People here cannot get it. Why don't they just go home? It's a very simple question.
It's a different mindset. I mean, like, the individualism thing is often triumph as, this is the gold standard. This is a great thing. But it also breeds individualism, like where, hey, man, I got my issue. You need to figure out yours. Like, it's I get the sense that China has a higher social, what do they call it? Social, what's social compassion? That's not the word for it.
We have communalism as opposed to individualism. This is a psychological factor. This is one of there are 2 very, very famous, globally famous psychologists, Gerd Hofstede and Alfonso Trompenas. These 2 guys are globally famous psychologists who have identified features of each country. And America is individual, China is communal. China is a communal living. Someone just said it's 1,000 people died last month of gun deaths. That will include the suicides as well. So it's probably, I don't know the number. I was just throwing a number up there for the purposes, but 1,000 people died of gun deaths last month. That's 100,000 a year. more than. So anyway, you have these two guys who have identified different dimensions of culture. The hierarchy, the power distance index is one. People in China respect the hierarchy, the father figure, the teacher, the doctor, the professor, those kinds of people, and the government. And people in America don't have the same degree of respect. So when you look at the power distance index, America is this big and China is up there. So what that is China respects. China wants the government to look after them. Different concept. Then you've got things like long-term orientation.
That's a legitimacy thing too, though. Meaning the power needs to be legitimate and they need to be competent. And when there's not
necessarily, not necessarily so. If your father is a bad father, he's still your father in China. If your mother's a bad mother, if your boss is a bad boss, they're still your boss. There's a hierarchical structure that is accepted. Now, we as Westerners look at this. We've actually gone into my topic. This is what I business consulted on. I have a master's degree in cross-cultural change management, and this is where I focus my issue. Western managers have a philosophy that says this is how we're going to work. Chinese workplace psychology has a very different philosophy that says, no, this is how we're going to work, and never the twain. This is like putting two magnets together the wrong way. They don't go together. So what I had to do for a period of time during my working life was train Western managers at the same time as train Chinese workers to deal with each other. That's how we did it. So this hierarchy is real. Long-term orientation. Chinese businesses will say, let's invest this for the next 20 years because in 30 years' time, this is going to be good. That's how China has done what it's done. It started 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago and said, we're going to do this. Hu Jintao was the guy who said, we're going to scientifically develop China. And Xi Jinping is now continuing it. And it's been going on since Hu Jintao was here 20 years ago. So that's how that changes, long-term orientation. And then we've got things like gratification. Chinese people will eat bitterness, they call it. They will suck horrible societal things in order for their future to be better or their children's future. So you'll see parents sacrificing everything so their children can get ahead and their children will help them later in life, long-term orientation. So these are the different things that we have in our different cultures that say, why do we misunderstand the Chinese so much as Westerners? Why do the Chinese misunderstand us? But the fact is, Chinese people understand us far better than we understand them. They specialize in understanding us, and we ignore them. And that's part of this dimension of culture. Americans are exceptional. We are special when we're American. You are not. Everybody else is not American, so therefore don't worry about it. And your quote about what Trump said, if it wasn't for us, the rest of the world would be whatever the rest of the world is. I saw that as well. So he says that because he believes it. Not because it's true, but because he believes it to be true. And many Americans do this. It's called American exceptionalism. So yeah, you kind of hit a nail on a head with me there. I could talk about that for hours. And we should probably do another show specifically on the difference between Chinese and Western psychology and cultures that changes that we misunderstand. But that's the problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like I can't believe your wife. It's funny to me because it's hard for me to reconcile a country that doesn't know or is not overly familiar with homelessness issue, or is not overly familiar with people going hungry. I mean, you must understand from our point of view.
Wait. One thing, let me correct you there. China went through hunger. China knows poverty. China knows poverty far better than America knows poverty. America is experiencing poverty now, and you're starting to understand it. China had 100 years or more. So basically from the end of not even the end, about 1850 all the way through until probably 20 years ago. So 140, 150 years, China has known poverty, serious poverty. I mean, there's stories of 30 million, 80 million, 200 million dying. They're all bullshit.
Yeah.
Every single one of those stories is BS because life expectancy went up, the population grew, but at the same time, they did experience famine. They did experience poverty. My wife was born into a home that had no floor. It was just a compacted earth. The walls were made of straw and bamboo, and the roof was made of bark. And to get water, you went out to the river and got water from the river. And there was no such thing as electricity when she was born, and she's 52 years old. So that's how recent this is. Her parents now, they're not rich in any way, shape, or form. They're both retired. They're in their 80s, and they live in a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom home, which has 3 floors and a shop on the ground floor that they rent out to somebody else, which is their source of income. So you can see now how this has really changed in the last 40 years since Deng Xiaoping, since open reform. Mao set the foundations for it, and you can say what you like about Mao. The Chinese love him, so whatever you think about him doesn't matter. Chinese love him, but they only love him 70% because 30% of what he did was wrong because he was old and the Cultural Revolution and a few other things. But they do adore this guy. He set the foundation for where China is today, and China now has a middle class larger than Europe. Europe, the whole of Europe, a middle class in China larger than Europe.
And again, I just want to go back to this point about the whole the idea of hierarchy. That's not because of competence. Like, that's not because of China has shown a consistent track record over the course, meaning within the course of your wife's life, she went from a mud hut, for all intents and purposes, to modernity within a lifetime.
Yeah.
And if you were living in a society like that, you can look at the people saying they're competent. And because they're competent, we give them due credit. We give them due legitimacy. And the legitimacy is the issue. But you're saying it's not really the legitimacy. It's the fact that they're in hierarchy, like in a hierarchical structure itself, meaning we accept the hierarchy, whether they're legitimate or not.
Yes and no. The hierarchy thing is a different thing. I'm talking about in the family, in the workplace, in the schools. I was a teacher here for 13 years as well. Students here are very well behaved because they have a respect. It's an inherent respect for teachers. Employees will do what their boss demands of them, even if that means working unpaid overtime and stuff like that, because the boss demanded it of them. It's a respect that they have. So yeah, there's a hierarchical structure, but there is also something else that's come about more recently, and that is changes to those cultures, mostly brought about by exposure to the West. Many people, particularly where I live in the Greater Bay Area, go overseas to study. And then they come back and they have different ideas. So there's a dilution of the old system happening right now. As we speak, it's happening. And I'm witnessing this. I've been here 20 years. So yeah, I'm witnessing it. And I do speak very highly. Someone says, wow, gee, this guy speaks higher of China than Chinese people. Yeah, I do. Because I've been here for 20 years and I've seen it go from poverty, from pollution, from corruption to what we see today, which is very different. There's very little in the way of corruption. It's not systemic. It does exist. It's not systemic. There is no crime, absolutely no street crime at all. I have not seen an assault, a robbery, a burglary. I haven't seen a theft in 10 years. I haven't seen one. Now, I'm a guy who's trained to look for this. I was a police officer for 10 years. I haven't seen an incident where somebody was violent or aggressive. There's no road rage. I haven't heard of a rape, a robbery, or a burglary in the last 10 years. I'm not saying they don't happen, but they're very, very rare. So we're seeing society has changed because people say, well, I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need those things. I don't have poverty, so I don't need to steal food. I don't need food, so there's no need to steal it. It's a very different society. There is a lot of surveillance, and a lot of people say it's because of the surveillance. No, people in China don't think like that. They think that surveillance makes me safe. People in the West think that surveillance is invading my privacy. Very different cultures. That's all they are. Yeah. So education is another thing. 60% of Chinese students go to tertiary education. 60%. That is now higher than America, and everyone can afford it. This is an amazing thing. A bachelor's degree in China will cost you about $3,000. A master's degree might cost you $5,000.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I did a master's
30,000 a
degree in the
year.
UK. It cost me £20,000, and that was years ago. Now, I come here, I can do a master's degree for 12,000 RMB. 12,000 RMB is less than $2,000 for a master's degree. That's because I'm a foreigner and I can go into certain schools that take foreigners. But my wife wants to, if she wanted to, would probably cost her about 35,000 RMB to do a master's degree. It cost her 20,000 to do a bachelor's degree. 20,000 is 3,000 US dollars. Wow. She did that as an adult as well. Both of us have been adult students in China.
Jerry, you are awesome. Thank you for this. You are absolutely awesome. I am always amazed by some of the stuff that is coming up from the China thing in comparison to the way that the U.S. talks about it. It's so different in the way that it's such a clash. And the way that these
everything that you hear in the West is misinformation about China. Everything.
Jerry Gray, host of Jerry's Take on China. He's lived in China for more than 20 years, has traveled more than 40,000 kilometers across the country. Check him out on his YouTube channel. Jerry, thank you for this, man. You be safe. You have a good night. I know it's late there.
Thank you, Jamal. I'll see you again next time. And thank you to your audience once more and the questions that come up.
Yeah, I see. I see them popping up on the side.
You're going to have to go through those questions and compile another list for the next time I'm on.
I will do that. I will get them to give me a list. I will get them to give me a list.
Do it.
You be safe.
I don't mind.
You, man. All right.